The catastrophic events on K2 in 2008 unfolded on August 1st, marking a grim chapter in the history of mountaineering. K2, the world's second highest peak, became the site of a tragedy involving the deaths of 11 climbers from various international expeditions. Additionally, 3 climbers suffered severe injuries. This tragedy, which began with an ascent on Friday and culminated in a disastrous descent on Saturday, is regarded as the deadliest single incident in K2's history. While the exact details of the disaster remain unclear, several plausible accounts have emerged based on testimonies from survivors and radio communications from climbers who perished on that fateful day. A key factor in the disaster was a massive ice avalanche at the bottleneck, a perilous section of the climb notorious for its precarious seracs and steep couloirs. The avalanche obliterated critical fixed rope lines, stranding climbers and significantly hampering their descent. Tragically, 2 climbers lost their lives during their summit attempt, adding to the catastrophe. The climbers who perished hailed from diverse nations, including France, Korea, Ireland, Norway, Nepal, Pakistan, and Serbia. K2 itself stands at a towering 8,611 meters, 28,251 feet, part of the Karakoram Range bordering Pakistan's Gilgit-Baltistan region and China's Xinjiang province. Revered by mountaineers, K2 is considered a more formidable challenge than Mount Everest, with its extreme difficulty making it the 3rd most dangerous peak globally based on fatality rates. The bottleneck, the most treacherous segment of the ascent, is a narrow, steep couloir overshadowed by massive ice seracs that pose a constant risk of collapse. Climbers aim to minimize time spent in this hazardous area due to the high probability of avalanches. Unfortunately, on this particular day, the bottleneck proved especially lethal. The climbing season for K2 typically spans from June to August. However, in 2008, severe weather conditions prevented successful ascents during June and July. By the end of July, 10 teams were stationed on the mountain, waiting for a break in the weather after weeks of delays. During this time, climbers focused on acclimatization and preparing high-altitude camps, with Camp 4th, the highest, situated at 7,800 to 7,900 meters, or 25,600 to 25,900 feet. Efforts to piece together the tragedy involve identifying the key climbers and their respective teams, shedding light on the sequence of events that led to this unparalleled disaster in K2's history. The Norwegian team consisted of Lars Nesse, Rolf Bay, and Cecilia Skog, a couple united both in their marital bond and their shared passion for mountaineering. The Norway team, sponsored by a Dutch company, included Cas van de Gevel, Wilco van Rooyen, Ger McDonnell, and Pemba Galji Sherpa. The Korean team was a larger group led by Mr. Kim and included climbers Kyung-hyo Park, Hyo-gyong Kim, and Dongjin Hwang, along with 2 Sherpa cousins, Jumik Bote and Pasang Bote. The American team featured Eric Meyer and Frederick Streng, while the Serbian team included Dren Mandic, Predrag Zagorak, and Iso Planic. The French team comprised Hugues Doberady and a high-altitude porter named Johan Baig. 2 solo climbers also embarked on this journey, Alberto Zarain of Spain and Marco Confortola of Italy. As the final days of July approached, these diverse international teams converged at Camp 4 on July 31st, preparing for an ambitious push to the summit of K2. Among them were climbers from the United States, France, Norway, Serbia, and South Korea, accompanied by Sherpas from Nepal. The NORAD-sponsored international team added to the mix, joined by Pakistani high-altitude porters, or HAPS. The teams, despite their differing origins and strategies, agreed to collaborate in a collective attempt to conquer the peak on Friday, August 1st. In addition to the organized teams, independent climbers also prepared for the challenge. Among them was Alberto Zarain, who adopted a distinct approach, climbing from Camp 3 under the cover of darkness without pausing at Camp 4 before his summit push. In the hours before midnight, Sherpas and HAPs began the critical task of fixing ropes to secure the path through the mountain's treacherous terrain. However, the effort faced an early setback when Shaheen Baig, the most experienced and authoritative of the HAPs, had to descend due to severe altitude sickness. Shaheen's absence was a significant blow, as his unmatched knowledge of K2 and leadership among the support staff were crucial to the expedition's success. His withdrawal left the team struggling to maintain coordination, leading to confusion over essential preparations. A key issue that emerged was the apparent misplacement or omission of critical ropes needed for the ascent, particularly in the bottleneck area. This steep and precarious section of K2 required fixed lines to aid climbers navigating its dangerous seracs and couloirs. Without these ropes in the right positions, the stage was set for a disastrous summit attempt. As climbers from around the world prepared to tackle K2, a combination of human and environmental factors began to unravel the ambitious endeavor, setting the scene for one of the most tragic episodes in mountaineering history. At 3 a.m., as climbers began their ascent, they discovered a significant setback. The high-altitude porters, ERIPs, and Sherpas had used precious rope to set lines above Camp 4 where they were unnecessary, leaving them without sufficient rope for the crucial section above the bottleneck. This forced climbers to relocate ropes from lower sections, creating an unforeseen delay and heightened risk. Recognizing the dangers of a delayed summit and potential ice falls in the crowded bottleneck, Eric Meyer and Frederick Streng from the American team decided to abandon their climb and return to Camp 4. Chris Klinka persisted for a few hours before also retreating, while Jelle Stalman of the Norrit team turned back due to early frostbite symptoms. By 8 a.m., climbers navigated the treacherous bottleneck. Serbian climber Dren Mandic, attempting to adjust his oxygen brace and overtake Norwegian Cecilia Skog, detached from his safety line. Tragically, he lost his balance, falling over 100 meters. Witnesses at Camp 4 organized a recovery effort, led by Frederick Streng, but upon reaching Mandic with Serbian teammates Predrag Zagorak, Iso Planic, and Hap Mohammed Hussein, it was clear he had succumbed to his injuries. While attempting to transport Mandic's body, the group encountered Jahan Beg, a French team HAP suffering from apparent altitude sickness. Exhibiting erratic behavior, Beg lost his footing during the descent. Streng instructed Beg to release the rope connecting him to Mandic's body to prevent a cascading accident, but Beg failed to execute a self-arrest and fell fatally down the bottleneck. Following Beg's fall, Streng and the Serbian team abandoned efforts to retrieve Mandic's body, securing it to the mountainside with a flag in tribute. With conditions worsening and delays mounting, climbers reached the summit as late as 8 p.m., far beyond the safe time frame of 3 to 5 p.m. Among the summiteers was Alberto Zerain, who navigated the bottleneck solo during his descent. As darkness enveloped the mountain by 8:30 p.m., Norwegian climbers Lars Flatå Nessa and Cecilia Skog, nearing the bottleneck, encountered disaster when a collapsing serac severed safety lines and swept away Skog's husband, Rolf Bay. Bay, who had ended his climb earlier, had been waiting for Skog's return. Despite this tragedy, Nessa and Skog managed to descend to Camp 4. The serac collapse made the bottleneck nearly impassable, forcing climbers to undertake a perilous, free solo descent in darkness without ropes or fall protection. Dutch climber Wilco van Rooyen described the chaos as some climbers attempted to descend in the dark, while others bivouacked above the bottleneck, delaying their descent until morning. This sequence of events turned an already dangerous expedition into a nightmarish ordeal, with the bottleneck becoming a deadly trap for those stranded in the unforgiving death zone. The Norrit expedition featured Pemba Gyalja, a Sherpa veteran of Everest, who descended K2 in darkness without fixed ropes, reaching Camp 4 before midnight. Meanwhile, Sherpa Cheering Dorje navigated the bottleneck, heroically securing little Pasang Lama, who lacked an ice axe, to his harness. This perilous act, vividly detailed in Ed Viester's K2, Life and Death on the World's Most Dangerous Mountain, involved planting each step carefully while guiding Pasang to safety, a feat of extraordinary bravery. Two South Korean climbers, Kim Jae-soo and Go Mi-young, also navigated the bottleneck during the night. However, Go struggled and had to be safely escorted down by climbers planning to summit the next morning. Meanwhile, Norrit team member Cas van de Gevel and French climber Hugues Doberade descended the bottleneck. Van de Gevel witnessed a climber falling fatally, believed to be Doberade, whom he had advised earlier to delay his descent due to exhaustion and lack of supplemental oxygen. Elsewhere, Marco Confortola, Wilco van Rooyen, and Geir McDonald bivouacked above the traverse, unable to locate fixed ropes. Confortola later recalled hearing cries, seeing distant headlamps vanish into darkness, and an ominous roar from the serac field. 8 climbers remained trapped above the bottleneck. At base camp, a rescue team led by Sherpas Tsering Bote and Big Pasang Bote ascended to assist those stranded. Their initial priority was locating Jumik Bote and members of the Korean expedition reportedly stuck beyond the bottleneck. In the pre-dawn hours, Van Rooyen abandoned his search for ropes and began a solo descent, fearing snow blindness. He encountered the Korean climbers and Jumik Bote entangled in ropes, likely due to a serac fall or avalanche. Van Rooyen provided gloves to Jumik and continued down after being assured a rescue was underway. Later, Comfortola and McDonald reached the entangled climbers. After hours of attempts to free them, McDonald unexpectedly ascended again, which Comfortola attributed to altitude-induced delirium. Comfortola communicated with the approaching rescuers before exhaustion forced his descent. He later reported that an avalanche narrowly missed him and revealed the remains of a climber he identified as McDonald. The boat rescuers eventually reached Comfortola and helped him descend. They then located Jumik Bote and 2 Korean climbers who had miraculously freed themselves. Tragically, a 4th climber descending behind them, identified as McDonald by his red and black attire, fell victim to a serac collapse. This contradicted earlier reports and suggested McDonald had successfully freed the climbers before his death. These chaotic events underscore the perilous unpredictability of K2, where even acts of heroism and resilience are shadowed by tragedy. From his position at the base of the bottleneck, Zering Bote recounted witnessing a catastrophic serac fall engulfed the rescue team descending near the bottleneck's apex. This grim episode added yet another layer of mystery to the already enigmatic 2008 K2 disaster. One unresolved question was the fate of Meherban Karim, Dobereid's high-altitude porter, last seen leaving the summit with Dobereid on the evening of August 1st. Evidence suggests they became isolated in the darkness, as Van de Gevel encountered only Dobereid at the bottleneck. In Surviving K2, Wilco Van Rooyen proposed that Karim had bivouacked at a higher altitude than Comfortola and McDonald. He provided photographs showing a silhouette above the serac field at dawn on August 2nd, with subsequent images depicting the figure's disappearance and a trail descending through the seracs. Van Rooyen, along with others like McDonald's friend Annie Starkey, speculated that this figure was Karim, who may have lost his way and been swept away by an avalanche or serac collapse. Graham Bowley, in No Way Down, argued that Van Rooyen's photographic evidence was inconclusive, a view supported by author Michael Kotis. They leaned on Marco Confortola's contradictory but widely circulated accounts. Initially, Confortola claimed he had freed the entangled Korean climbers, but it was later revealed that McDonald had accomplished this. He also misidentified a body in the avalanche debris, initially thought to be McDonald's. Comfortola's inconsistent testimonies were partly attributed to his early media engagement, as Sherpa accounts, including Pemba Gyalge's, emerged days later. An alternative theory arose from Big Pasang Bote's observation of a red-suited climber, suggesting Karim might have been the final victim of the serac fall, not McDonald. This would align with Confortola's earlier identification of McDonald's remains in the avalanche. Despite these accounts, the sequence of events remains uncertain, as multiple plausible scenarios contradict each other. Amanda Padoan and Peter Zuckerman's Buried in the Sky explored Sherpa perspectives, proposing that both McDonald and Karim might have survived until the final serac collapse. After Big Pasang's discovery of Jumik Bote and 2 Korean climbers near the bottleneck, another serac fall swept the group away, leaving no survivors. Sering Bote narrowly avoided the same fate due to his slower ascent, while Gyalge and Confortola, stationed lower on the mountain, were spared. The tragedy escalated the death toll to 11, a somber testament to K2's perilous nature. Amid the chaos, Van Rooyen forged a new path down the mountain, bypassing Camp 4 despite snow blindness and frostbite. Satellite phone calls helped pinpoint his location, enabling Van de Gevel and Gyalge to locate him. Van Rooyen endured 60 hours in the death zone, marking an extraordinary survival story. On August 4th, Pakistani military helicopters began evacuations. Van de Gevel and Van Rooyen were airlifted to Skardu after surviving severe frostbite, while Confortola, rescued from Camp 2, followed shortly. A grim list of casualties underscored the disaster's toll, as the survivors faced both physical and emotional scars from their ordeal on K2. Marco Confortola emerged as a divisive figure in the K2 disaster, a tragedy already steeped in conflicting accounts and unanswered questions. His portrayal in media interviews cast him as a hero who blamed other expeditions for their inexperience and poor equipment. However, his narrative often shifted, fueling skepticism about his role in the events. After the tragedy, Jur McDonnell's family traveled to Islamabad to meet with Wilco van Rooyen, seeking clarity about the final hours of Jur's life. Comfortola had claimed to witness climbers swept away before bivouacking with McDonnell until dawn. He alleged that van Rooyen joined them later, a claim van Rooyen denied, stating they all bivouacked together. Demonstrating patience, van Rooyen explained the sequence of events with diagrams but admitted that much remained unknown, as most occurred during his descent. The family believed further insights would come from Pemba Gyalje Sherpa, who descended from the Karakoram with the remaining Norit team. Pemba's harrowing encounter with a distraught Comfortola near the bottleneck painted a stark picture. Struggling with hypoxia, Comfortola resisted Pemba's attempts to provide oxygen, his distress manifesting in tears and verbal outbursts. While Comfortola returned to Islamabad, Pemba arrived to a media landscape that ignored his testimony. At a Milan press conference, Comfortola claimed he had tried to rescue the Korean climbers, saying, "It came from my heart." Yet inconsistencies marred his accounts, particularly regarding McDonnell's last moments and Comfortola's role in the rescue. Annie Starkey, McDonnell's partner, suggested Comfortola's changing stories went unchallenged because no other survivors could contest his version. Meanwhile, Pemba joined McDonnell's family, sharing his account supported by photographs. These images confirmed that McDonnell had freed 2 Sherpas from their ropes moments before a fatal icefall, establishing him as the true hero, not Comfortola. Despite criticism, Comfortola later donated to the family of a Sherpa he claimed to assist. His memoir, Days of Ice, added his perspective to the disaster's narrative. Gur McDonnell's family, in contrast, created a charity supporting the children of the high-altitude porters who perished. Cheering Dorje Sherpa's courage earned him the Tenzing Norgay Award, while Pemba Gyalje Sherpa was named National Geographic's Adventure of the Year for his extraordinary efforts during the disaster. Similarly, Wilco van Rooyen's survival of 2 nights in the death zone, an unmatched feat on K2, is celebrated in his book Surviving K2. Other climbers, including Cecilia Skog and Ed Viesters, also published accounts of their experiences, enriching the chronicles of K2's perilous history. The calamity claimed 11 lives, making it one of the deadliest events in mountaineering history. Among the victims were seasoned climbers like Gur McDonnell, who perished aiding others, and Pakistani climber Karim Meherban, whose fate remains a mystery. Notable losses also included Norwegian Rolf Bay and Nepalese Sherpas Jumik and Pasang Bote, swept away in the relentless icefalls. In the aftermath, Pemba reflected, had everyone retreated after the Serbian climber's fall, the toll might have been 1, not 11. Between 2009 and 2010, no climbers reached K2's summit, marking a somber pause in its history until its next ascent in 2011. The disaster remains a poignant reminder of K2's unforgiving nature and the enduring courage of those who dare to climb it.